Hello everyone and welcome. I'm Mrs. E and today we're going to be doing Creative Writing 6-week course, week 2, Characters and Dialogue. First, let's start by asking a question. Are your characters believable? Creating believable characters doesn't mean creating realistic characters. People don't want to read about real life. Real life is not logical. There are no happy or at least satisfying endings. For example, in H.G. Wells' The War of the Worlds, the Martians are not realistic characters. However, they are believable. Wells described the Martians with reference to human biology by suggesting the Martians were like a more evolved type of humanity, brains without the uselessness of a body. It allows us to understand how a form such as that could exist. Also, no scientist can confirm 100% that we will not be visited by beings from another planet. So, how can we make our characters believable? Well, one tip would be to avoid extremes. It's not believable for a character to be 100% good or 100% bad. They would be boring caricatures whose actions would be too predictable. If you want your reader to invest in a character, you need to make them want to work them out. Make your villain have a string of good in them, a chance at redemption, and vice versa. However, we need to make them more than ordinary. Remember, we want our characters to be believable, not realistic. Readers don't want to read about ordinary people. They have enough of those in their real lives. So what could be more than ordinary? How about a wizard? I'm sure one comes to mind. A very famous wizard with a lightning scar. But what makes him believable? Not only is he magical, he is also a teenage boy, going to high school for the first time, experiencing bullying, friendships, hormones. Yes, he's attending a school for witchcraft and wizardry, and he's fighting a villainous, really awful wizard every book. But that's what makes him more than ordinary. That's what we want to read about. But we can believe in him because we can identify with being a teenager and going through that time in life. In order to ensure that your characters are believable, you need to create well-rounded characters. And to do this, as an author, you need to know your characters inside out. Because if you don't, what chance does your reader have? To ensure this, you need to create a detailed profile. Even if all of this information is not used in your story, it is good preparation for knowing your characters. If you've never done this before, then have a go at this short task. I want to know, who are these people? I've just found 2 random pictures online and I've put them into this worksheet. I've written 9 questions to start you off. What are their names? What do they do for employment, or are they retired? How old are they? What is their personality like? Where do they live? What is their accent like? Where did they grow up? What has happened to them? What makes them more than ordinary? And a little tip, use personal experience from people you know or people you've seen in the street or friends, family, even maybe characters that you've been able to identify with in the past. That could be a starting point, and then you will adapt these characters, these personas, to become your own characters. Pause the video here to have a go, and this will help you practice creating character profiles for future. Now we have our characters, we need to think about dialogue. This is the conversation between characters, and it's a very important part of creative writing. Like in real life, characters should talk, but not too much. And how the character speaks depends on their personality, which is why it's important to have created your character profiles. But why use dialogue at all? Dialogue can and should reveal character, take the plot forward, or explain backstory, or all three. However, you are not writing a script, so be careful not to write too much dialogue. You're writing a story, so only the most important dialogue should be included. This should then be surrounded by description, which we will look at in depth next session. Have you ever wondered why, when you're watching a film, people don't say goodbye on the phone? I always did, and now I'm a writer, I realise, because that's a waste of dialogue. Keep that in mind. When writing dialogue, don't forget the basics. Speech marks. We need to punctuate our dialogue. We put all spoken words in speech marks, also called inverted commas or quotation marks. They show that someone is speaking. The first speech mark is put before the first word of the dialogue. The second speech mark is put after the last word or punctuation mark. Only one set of speech marks is put around each passage of dialogue, even if it includes more than one sentence. So let's look at an example. I'm going to read out some dialogue to you, and I want you to think about where should we put the speech marks. Once I finish reading, pause the video to have a go before I reveal the answers. Where are you going? Kate asked. I thought you were coming to the park with me and Rita. Well, I was going to, but then I got a better offer, Stefan obnoxiously replied. Why should I come with you anyway? He offered. Because Sarah said she'd come if you do, and I know how you feel about Sarah, Kate cheekily replied. Stefan blushed, letting his gaze drop to the floor. Shut it, you. I don't know what you're talking about. She is the one with the crush. Kate was getting impatient. So are you coming or what? I'm not hanging around all day. Yeah, I'll come, but not because of Sarah, Stefan replied, getting defensive. At last, Sarah thought. Let's go! Pause the video here to have a go at filling in the speech marks before I reveal the answers. Okay, here are the answers. How did you do? Let's think about how to write good dialogue. Think about how the people you know talk, or spend some time listening to different ways people talk when you're out and about in different settings. Notice not only the words they say, but how they say them. Let's look at an example. I'm not sure about that, Jennifer said. Get away from there now, said Mr. Williams. Look at how this dialogue is written. What does it tell you about the characters? You could add, I'm not sure about that, Jennifer said, timidly. But the fact that she stutters implies that she's timid, or she's nervous, or she's shy. You could add, get away from there now, said Mr. Williams, with a scowl. but the exclamation mark in the dialogue implies that he's annoyed or angry, or a character that might not be very nice. These are all important things to think about. How can you write your dialogue to reveal more about character, situation, plot, or backstory? And don't forget to consider your characters' personalities. Two characters with different personalities might say the same thing, but in different ways. For example, that movie was a simply superb example of comic genius, said Mortimer. And that movie was really fun, said Mandy. Think about how you can tell character profiles just from those pieces of dialogue. Would we assume that Mortimer was really into his movies? Maybe he's a movie critic. Maybe he's a little bit more educated. Whereas Mandy, maybe she's just a fun-loving person that likes to go to the movies but doesn't think too much about it. Just, oh, that was fun. So now you have some tips about how to create believable characters and how to write good dialogue. Why don't you have a go yourself? Start by using the techniques learnt in this session to create profiles for your characters in your own short story. You could consider the following. What will happen to them throughout the story? How will they grow as a character? Will they die? And what is their connection with the other characters? Thank you for watching, everyone. Next session we will explore how to enhance our stories by adding detailed descriptions. I'm Mrs. Z, and I'll see you then.